University of Pennsylvania senior Leah Thomas has been making headlines this swim season in the NCAA, not just for smashing records, but for doing so as a biological man on the women's team. Thomas, who was born Will Thomas, has been especially dominant in the longer races like the 1,650-yard freestyle, where he beat out the second place UPenn swimmer by a whopping 38 seconds. Though the UPenn administration strongly advised the swimmers to avoid talking to the media, a couple of them have spoken out about their experiences with Thomas, who allegedly bragged about how easy the races have been and brought other swimmers to tears, reportedly. And this past weekend, Thomas made headlines again, but this time for losing to another trans athlete. Joining me now to talk about this is Mary Szoch, director of the Center for Human Dignity at Family Research Council. Mary is a graduate of the University of Notre Dame, where she played basketball for the Fighting Irish and led it on the 2010-11 National Championship runner-up team. Mary, good to see you today.
Good to be here, Joseph. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us first, what happened over the weekend in the swim meets?
Well, it's a little confusing to people. Leah Thomas competed in a number of events. Thomas won 2 of those events. It appeared to people watching the events that Thomas was not trying, was not giving his best, giving the best effort that was possible. But then in the third event, Leah Thomas came up short and was beaten by a biological woman who identifies as a man.
Now it's strange. Was this scripted? I know that Thomas got a lot of bad attention for winning an event by 38 seconds. And it really was a bad look for those trying to say, oh, there's no biological differences between men and women. This isn't going to ruin women's sports. Do we think that, he's kind of throwing these meets now to try to make a different point?
I don't know if that's the case or not, but what I can tell you is that a number of my teammates from the University of Notre Dame would beat just about any guy on the street in a game of one-on-one basketball. Those girls are the best female athletes in the country, and they could beat your average male athlete and even decent male athletes in a game of one-on-one. Where the difference comes in is when we have elite athletes or any level that is comparative. And that's the point that I want to make about the event that Leah Thomas lost in, is that was not his event. As you said, Leah Thomas has beaten other swimmers by as much as 38 seconds in the longer events. Those are the events that he competed in when he was on the men's team. And what we saw over the weekend was him competing in an event that was not his typical event, which I think proves the fact that biological males do have an advantage over biological females.
Now let's talk about kind of the psychological, emotional component of this. You were a college athlete. What's going on for the women in these meets on the Penn team, but on other teams as well, who are competing in these meets, and realistically, they don't have a chance of success? How does that affect these women who have been training their whole lives to swim in these meets?
I think it must be very frustrating. They're essentially competing for second place. But what I want to point out as well, Joseph, is I was the last player to walk on to Notre Dame's women's basketball team, meaning I was the worst player on the team. If just one man had said that he was a woman, I wouldn't have made that team at all. The team that I had worked for years and years to make, that would have just not happened. And the same is true for one athlete at the University of Pennsylvania. One female athlete is not on that team, is instead watching from the stands because a slot on that team was taken by a biological male. And that is wrong.
Now, a recent report from the Transgender Law Center, they basically admitted that none of their arguments are winning on the sports issue, that they can't figure out a way to frame this in a way that gets the public to agree with them. In the broader context of this entire debate about gender and transgenderism, Do you think the sports debate is what's going to be the end of the road?
Well, I certainly hope that it is. In sports, we see whenever a biological male competes in a female sport or in a female arena, a woman loses. And we see the same is true in life, right? Any time that a biological male takes a spot that would have otherwise gone to a woman, women lose. Anytime that a biological male is allowed into women's restrooms, women feel they feel endangered. They feel uncomfortable. These are things that women shouldn't have to deal with. This is something that we need to stand up against because we care about women.
Mary, one final question, about 30 seconds. I've heard rumors that there could be an actual boycott of the rest of the Penn women's swimming team over this situation. Any reason to think that might happen?
Well, I certainly think that it should. I certainly hope that it does, because there are women on that team who have competed their whole lives. Swimmers get up at 4 a.m. to go to swim practice. You don't get up at 4 a.m. for 15 consecutive years to then come in second place to a man.
Mary Szoch, thanks so much for being with us and all you do.
Thanks so much for having me.